This is a story of three young men who slept with corpses in the hospital to get money. Let's watch to find out if truly they were able to get the money and what were the consequences that they suffered. Before we start, do well to like the video and subscribe to this channel for more stories like this. Once upon a time, in a small village in the heart of Ghana, lay the village of Asom. Asom was a place of simple joys and harsh realities, where the people lived off the land, and life was a constant struggle. The villagers worked hard, toiling in the sun from dawn till dusk, trying to eke out a living from the soil. In this small village, three young men named Kwame, Kofi, and Kojo found themselves trapped in the tight grip of poverty. Kwame, the eldest, was a tall, strong young man with broad shoulders and calloused hands. He spent his days working on the cocoa farms, but no matter how hard he toiled, the money was never enough. The farm owners paid little, just enough to keep the workers coming back, but never enough to lift them out of poverty. Kwame's family depended on him, and he felt the weight of their expectations every day. Kofi, the middle one, was clever and quick with his hands. He was the village handyman, always fixing things for the villagers. If a roof needed repairing or a bicycle had a broken chain, Kofi was the one to call. Yet, his skills brought little in return. People appreciated his help, but they were just as poor as he was, and often paid him with food or small favors instead of money. Kojo, the youngest, had dreams of becoming a teacher. He loved reading and learning new things, and he often borrowed books from the village small library. But without money or school fees, his dreams seemed unreachable. He watched other children go to school and wished he could join them, but his family's poverty kept him from achieving the goals. Every evening, the three friends would gather by the beer bar, sharing their woes and empty stomachs. The bar was a symbol of their friendship, a place where they could talk freely about their hopes and fears. "We need money," Kwame would say, frustration etched on his face. "We cannot continue like this." Kofi would nod in agreement. "There has to be a way," he would say, looking around at the village and the people who, like them, were struggling to survive. Kojo, always the dreamer, would suggest various schemes, from starting a small business to selling crafts in the nearby town. But nothing they tried seemed to work. The circle of poverty was relentless, and their situation only seemed to get worse. One fateful evening, a mysterious old man named Nana Boache approached them as they sat at the beer bar. He was known in the village as a man with mortuary powers, someone who could see things others couldn't. His eyes were dark and full of secrets. "I have a way for you to make money," he said, his voice low and tempting. "But it is not for the faint-hearted." Curiosity and desperation got the better of them. "What must we do?" Kofi asked, his heart pounding. He was willing to try anything to improve their lives, even if it meant taking risks. Nana Boache leaned in closer. "You must sleep with the dead," he whispered, "in the hospital mortuary. Each night you do this, you will receive money. But be warned, the spirits of the dead do not rest easy." The three friends looked at each other, fear and uncertainty battling with their desperate needs. They had heard stories about the dead coming back to haunt the living, and the thought of spending the night in a mortuary filled them with dread. "We would do it," Kwame finally said, his voice shaking. He couldn't bear to see his family suffer any longer, and this seemed like their only chance to escape poverty. That night, under the cover of darkness, they made their way to the hospital in the nearby town. The hospital was an old crumbling building, its walls stained with age and neglect. It stood on the outskirts of the town, surrounded by the overgrown weeds and broken fences. The mortuary was cold and smelled of decay. The bodies lay still, wrapped in white sheets, their faces hidden from the view. Kwame, Kofi and Kojo lay down beside the corpses, their hearts racing with fear. The air was thick with the presence of the dead. As they closed their eyes, they heard whispers, felt cold hands brush against their skin, but they stayed, determined to see it through. When morning came, as they got back to their different houses, they found money inside their clothes bags, just as Nana Boache had promised. They now had money to buy food and clothes. They started helping their families, and for a while, it seemed like their lives were improving. The villagers noticed the change in their fortunes and wondered how they had managed to come into so much money. But the price they paid was heavy. For the first time, they felt a glimmer of hope. They decided to go back the next night, and the night after that, each time they received more money. Kwame bought new farming tools and a sturdy bicycle to help him get to the cocoa farms faster. He no longer had to walk the long distance, saving him time and energy. He even started helping his family repair their old crumbling house. For the first time in years, they had a roof that didn't leak when it rained. Kofi, with his newfound wealth, began fixing things for the villagers without asking for payment. He repaired roofs, mended fences, and even helped build a new well. People began to see him as a generous and skilled young man. He bought better tools and materials for his work, which allowed him to do more and do it better. His family was proud of him, and their home was filling with things they had never dreamed of owning before. Kojo, determined to pursue his dreams of becoming a teacher, used his share of the money to pay for school fees. He bought books and uniform, and even managed to get a small desk and chair for his studies. He attended school regularly and quickly became one of the top students. His teachers were impressed with his dedication and hard work. For the first time, Kojo felt like his dream was within reach. As the months went by, their wealth grew. The three friends started to gain influence in the village. They contributed to the community projects, helped those in need, and became respected members of Asom. They funded the construction of a small clinic, which provided much-needed medical care to the village. They also helped repair the school building, making it a better place for the children to learn. Their generosity did not go unnoticed. The village elders invited them to meetings, seeking their advice on various matters. Kwame, Kofi, and Kojo found themselves in position of leadership, something they had never imagined before. They were able to bring out positive changes in Asom, making life better for everyone. Kwame decided to invest in a small cocoa processing business. With the money he had saved, he bought machines and hired workers from the village. The business provided jobs for many people and brought additional income to the community. The villagers were grateful and Kwame's business prospered. Kofi, always thinking of ways to improve the village, started a small repair shop. He trained other young men in his skills, giving them a chance to earn a living. The shop became a hub of activity where people came to get their things fixed and to learn new skills. Kofi's shop was a symbol of hope and progress in Aswa. Kojo, with his passion for education, started tutoring younger children in the evenings. He helped them with their homework and taught them things he had learned in school. His tutoring sessions became popular, and many children started doing better in their studies. Kojo's dream of becoming a teacher was not just for himself, but for the entire village. But with their newfound wealth came the hunting. The spirits of the dead began to make their presence known. At first, it was just whispers in the night, cold chills, and the feeling of being watched. The young men tried to ignore it, focusing on the positive changes in their lives. But the spirits grew more restless, their presence more pronounced. Kwame would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, feeling cold hands on his skin. He would see shadows moving in his house, hear voices calling his name. His family noticed the change in him, his constant state of fear and anxiety. Kofi too was haunted by the spirits. He would hear whispers in his shop, see tools move on their own. The once thriving repair shop began to feel eerie and unsettling. Kofi tried to continue his work, but the fear was always there. Kojo's dreams were plagued by the dead. He would see their faces, hear their voices, and feel their cold touch. His schoolwork began to suffer, and his once bright future seemed to dim. The The spirits were relentless, never giving him a moment's space. They realized they had made a grave mistake. The money, the wealth, the influence, they all had come at a terrible cost. The spirits would not leave them alone, and the young men knew they were trapped. The price of their diabolic paths was more than they had bargained for. In a desperate attempt to find the solution, they decided to confront Nana Boache. "You did not tell us about these spirits," Kwame accused, his voice trembling with anger. Nana Boache laughed, a hollow chilling sound. "You wanted money, and I gave you a way to get it. Did you think it would come without a price?" His eyes glinted with malice as he spoke. Realizing they were trapped, the young men returned to the mortuary, night after night, but the money brought them no joy. Their eyes grew hollow, their faces gaunt. The village began to whisper about the change in them, but no one knew the truth. The spirits of the dead were relentless. They haunted Kwame, Kofi, and Kojo day and night. The once vibrant village of Asom was overshadowed by the dark presence of the restless spirits. The villagers could sense something was wrong, but they could not understand what had happened to the three young men who had once brought so much hope and change to their community. As the hauntings grew worse, Kwame, Kofi, and Kojo realized that their wealth had come at too high a price. They knew that the spirits would never leave them alone, and the weight of their actions bore down on them heavily. The story of their rise to wealth and the subsequent hunting became a cautionary tale in Asom, a reminder that not all money comes from good deeds. One stormy night, the spirits became too much for Kofi. He ran into the forest, screaming, "Leave me alone!" The villagers found him the next morning, lifeless, his eyes wide with terror. The village mourned his loss, but the true horror of what had happened remained hidden from them. Kwame and Kojo were devastated. They knew the spirits would not stop until they too were dead. They returned to the mortuary one last time, hoping to find peace. As they lay down beside the corpses, the spirits surrounded them. "You took our peace," the voices whispered. "Now we will take yours." The next morning, the villagers found Kwame and Kojo in the mortuary, their bodies cold and still, their faces twisted in fear. Nana Boache disappeared, leaving behind only the memory of his chilling laugh. The village of Asom mourned the loss of the three young men, but the story of their diabolic paths was never forgotten. And so, the tale of Kwame, Kofi, and Kojo became a warning to all who sought quick riches through dark means, a reminder that the dead do not rest easy, and neither do those who disturb their slumber. The story of Asom and its cursed history spread far and wide. People from neighboring villages whispered about the tragedy, and the once vibrant village became known as a village of sorrow and mystery. But the spirits were not done. Their restless cries echoed through the night, seeking revenge, seeking peace. The village was never the same, and the memory of the three young men who dared to sleep with the dead lingered on, a dark shadow over Asom. The village of Asom was never the same again. The once vibrant community was now shrouded in an eerie silence. The villagers went about their daily routines, but a shadow of fear and sorrow hung over them. Whispers of the three young men's fate spread like wildfire, and people from neighboring villages spoke in hushed tones about the cursed village. The hospital mortuary, where the young men had spent their fateful nights, became a place of dread. The staff avoided going there alone, and the once routine task of moving bodies now filled them with unease. Stories of mortuary noises and ghostly apparitions spread among the workers, and many resigned, unable to cope with the haunting atmosphere. In the absence of Kwame, Kofi, and Kojo, new leaders emerged in Asom. The village elders, once reliant on the young men's energy and ideas, had to take charge again. They struggled to maintain the progress that had been made during the brief period of their prosperity. Clinic and the school, funded by the ill-gotten gains of the three friends, began to show signs of neglect. The new leaders tried to keep the village moving forward, but the loss of the young men weighed heavily on everyone. The once active community project slowed down, and the village began to slip back into its old ways of poverty and struggle. The memory of what had been achieved haunted the villagers, a painful reminder of what had been lost. Despite the efforts of the new leaders, mortuary occurrences continued to plague Aswan. The spirits of the dead, restless and angry, seemed to have taken a permanent hold on the village. At night, villagers reported hearing strange whispers and seeing shadowy figures. Children woke up screaming from their nightmares, and even the bravest men refused to venture out after dark. Nana Boache, the mysterious old man who had lured Kwame, Kofi and Kojo into their dark path, had vanished without a trace. Some believe he had been a demon in disguise, while others thought he was a sorcerer who had fled to avoid the consequences of his actions. The villagers were left with more questions than answers, and a deep sense of unease settled over Assam. The new leaders of Assam knew they had to do something to rid the village of the haunting presence. They decided to seek help from a powerful shaman known as Nana Akwa, who lived a distant village. Nana Akwa was famous for her ability to communicate with spirits and break curses. The villagers hoped she could provide the answers and solutions they desperately needed. A delegation was sent to Nana Akwa's village, bearing gifts and offerings to seek her assistance. The journey was long and arduous, but they were determined to bring back help. When they arrived, they explained their plight to Nana Akwa, who listened intently. After considering their story, she agreed to come to Assam and perform a ritual to cleanse the village. When Nana Akwa arrived in Assam, the villagers gathered in the central square, their faces filled with hope and fear. Nana Akwa set up a sacred space with herbs, candles, and talismans. She chanted ancient incantations, calling upon the spirits to reveal themselves and seeking their forgiveness. As the ritual progressed, the air grew thick with tension. The villagers watched in awe and fear as shadows seemed to move within the circle of light created by Nana Akwa. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the square, and the spirits of the dead appeared before them, their faces filled with sorrow and anger. Nana Akwa spoke to the spirits, asking for their forgiveness and pleading for their release from the earthly realm. She explained that Kwame, Kofi and Kojo had made a terrible mistake out of desperation, and she begged the spirit to find peace. The spirit listened to Nana Akwa's pleas, their forms shifting and shimmering in the candlelight. One spirit, an elderly man, stepped forward and spoke. "We have been restless for too long. We do not seek revenge, but we cannot find peace until what was taken from us is returned." Nana Akwa nodded solemnly. "What must be done to bring you peace?" she asked. The elderly spirit replied, "The money taken from us must be returned to the earth. Only then can we find rest." Nana Akwa turned to the villagers. "We must gather all the money that Kwame, Kofi and Kojo obtained through their pacts. It must be buried in the sacred ground." The villagers, though reluctant to part with the wealth that had briefly lifted them out of poverty, understood the gravity of the situation. They collected the money and brought it to the sacred ground where Nana Akwa had performed the ritual. With heavy hearts, they buried the money, hoping it would bring an end to the haunting. As the last of the money was buried, the air seemed to lighten. The spirits slowly began to fade, their forms dissolving into the night. The villagers watched in silence, praying that this would be the end of their ordeal. Nana Akwa finished the ritual with a final chant, thanking the spirits for their forgiveness and asking for their blessing on the village. When she was done, she turned to the villagers. "The spirit had found peace. You must honor their memory and live your lives with respect and humility." The villagers thanked Nana Akwa for her help and promised to heed her words. They knew that they had been given a second chance. and they were determined to make the most of it. The haunting presence that had plagued Asom began to lift, and the village slowly started to heal. With the spirit at rest, the village of Asom began to rebuild. The new leaders worked hard to maintain the progress that had been made, and the villagers came together to support one another. They continued to honor the memory of Kwame, Kofi, and Kojo, remembering the lessons they had learned from the tragic fates. The villagers knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but they faced it with a renewed sense of purpose. They had learned that true wealth came not from money, but from the strength of their community and the bonds they shared. And so, the village of Asom began to move forward, carrying with them the memory of the past and the hope of a brighter future. The moral lesson of this story is, in our quest for a better life, let us choose the path of righteousness and integrity. Let us respect the natural order and the spirits of those who have passed. Let us find true wealth in the love and support of our community and in the honest work of our hands. In doing so, we honor the memory of those who came before us and build a brighter future for those who will come after. Let us know what you think of the story and what you can say about Kwame, Kofi, and Kojo. Don't forget to check in the video description for other interesting stories. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so that you won't miss out on our upcoming stories. Thank you for watching.